This is Stefan Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com. Iran remains in the news. Iran has been a kind of tremendous challenge to the United States since the days of the Iranian Revolution, the Jimmy Carter presidency, and it continues to be high on the list of concerns in the United States for national security and also for regional security in the Middle East area. We recently saw, in fact, it was just a few days ago, that Aramco, the largest oil company in the world, had its computer systems hacked, and most of the computers had to be decommissioned and are going to have to be replaced. And that cyber attack came from Iran. There were several other cyber attacks against American internet sites. Some of those were traced to Iran. And there is a great deal of concern that not only is Iran being very aggressive on the internet attack front, but that Iran continues really without interruption pursuing nuclear capability. There's still a discussion as to whether they're looking for a nuclear bomb and bomb-making capacity, or whether, as the Iranians are saying, they are basically just trying to develop a peaceful nuclear industry. Most realists will say that it's pretty clear that Iran wants to be a nuclear power, and that means weapons. There is an interesting double game going on. One is what the United States policy towards Iran should be. That policy is closely connected to the state of Israel because Iran has great connections or strong connections with groups that would like to put an end to the state of Israel and that have created a national security concern and problem for the Israelis. The Israelis have warned that they will not allow Iran to become nuclear. The United States managed to talk the Israelis out of attacking the Iranian nuclear facilities, many of which are underground anyway and would be hard to destroy. The other part of the US and Israeli positioning with Iran is that there is no Secretary of State. Secretary Panetta is retiring, and President Obama has nominated Chuck Hagel, former senator of Nebraska. One of Hagel's big problems is that he is seen by many hawks and many conservative Republicans in the Senate as soft on Iran. He has said that he is interested in pursuing diplomacy, would like to use military force only as a last resort. And the second part, which is kind of interesting how these things sort of interconnect, is that he also has not been a very strong and vocal defender of Israel. He feels that the United States, I think, has leaned too far in the direction of being an ally of Israel, and that has kind of cost the United States better relationships with some of the other Middle Eastern countries. That's the kind of foreign policy external part. The other thing about Iran is that there is a huge power struggle going on in the country itself. President Ahmadinejad is one political faction in the country. We know his name, we see him all the time. He's very belligerent and has been pursuing the nuclear development very aggressively. Ahmadinejad, you may want to know, or you probably already know, was the student leader who actually led the takeover of the American embassy during Jimmy Carter's presidency. The other person in Iran who is a big player in the game is well, there's two actually. One of them is the president of the Iranian parliament, who is not much of a friend or ally with Ahmadinejad. They have some huge policy differences, personality differences, and those two in the last few weeks have gotten into some major visible and public fights and arguments. And the other major players in Iran still are the religious leaders, the Ayatollahs, who have a separate power base and in many respects, I believe, are much more powerful than the president of Iran. Beyond that, Iran is under pressure. There's an international boycott. There is a huge financial crisis because Iran can't do international banking, and therefore the Iranian currency has been losing value, which means that Iranians apparently have been going on this huge spending spree because they really don't want to keep their own currency. So even though the country is under a serious economic pressure from the outside, in Tehran, for example, there's a boom going on because everybody is spending every cent that they have in the bank on consumer goods, on going out to eat, on partying, and buying clothes and other luxury items. And so there's this strange world in which Iran is under a lot of pressure, and actually things should be pretty bad in the country. And yet at the same time, Iranians are not suffering that much from it because I guess the ones who have the money are spending it. Iran remains a very, very dangerous player in the international world. It is still on the list of terrorist countries. And for the foreseeable future, certainly for the rest of the Obama administration, Iran is going to be a major challenge. Not just the nuclear development, but now Iran is becoming more and more proficient in using the internet and cyberspace to essentially probe and potentially attack its Western adversaries. Definitely a country to watch. Leon Panetta, the outgoing Secretary of Defense, said that between Iran and China and North Korea and Ukraine and a couple of other places, he said the next Pearl Harbor could very well be a cyber attack, an internet attack against critical infrastructure in the United States that could be devastating unless we do something about that. And Iran is one of those players. So let's keep an eye on those things and see what happens in the next few months. Stefan Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com.